Okay, hello everyone. So I'm Lawrence McCahill. I'm one of the founders of the Happy Startup School, and we are building a global community of budding entrepreneurs, startup founders, and movement makers. And we're running a series of webinars where we're talking to interesting founders and thought leaders from around the world. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Ethan Austin, who's the founder or co-founder of a platform called GiveForward, which for those of you outside the US, you might not have heard of, but it's really a fundraising platform which helps people to donate money to people and organizations they care about. And as far as I'm aware, last time I looked, it was about $180 million worth of donations that have come through the platform. So, you know, this isn't small fry by any means. So welcome today, Ethan.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I appreciate you taking the time out today. So I think looking back, I mean, GiveForward isn't particularly well known in the UK or as far as I'm aware outside the US. But I mean, I think I discovered you guys through a blog on the First Round Review,
sure,
which is a great blog. Lots of interesting stories of startups and some of the challenges of growing a business at the early stage. But one thing that piqued my interest was just the focus on the company culture. And I know that they mentioned in that article that there was from what I understand, the chance meeting where you met Tony Hsieh from Zappos, and yeah, that seemed to spark something in you. So I don't know if you just want to tell us a little bit about that encounter, and did that shape your thinking sort of further along?
Yeah, no, I had a friend who runs a nonprofit, a cancer organization, and when Tony Hsieh was doing his book tour 2010, he was doing an event with him. And my friend's name is Johnny Immerman. His organization is called Immerman Angels, and they're partnering with an event in Chicago. And he's like, "Hey, you should come along. And I'm doing this thing with this guy Tony Hsieh. I think you'd really like him." And so I got to tag along. I wasn't part of the organization, just kind of hung around in the back, and we got to hang out in the trailer ahead of the they had a tour bus, or I guess hang out in the tour bus a little bit ahead of time. And honestly, my interactions with Tony Hsieh were minimal. I think I was too scared to really say much, to be honest with you. But we all got books, and I think that's where I gleaned most of the information from. Was that I just remember reading in the book that I don't remember what page it was on, but he says something along the lines of, we were a company that was 6 years old or 5 years old or however many years old it was before we developed core values, and that he always thought it was something corporate-y and hokey, and why would you have these core values? And then someone from one of the employees said we should really have these, and they built them, and it changed kind of the company. And for us, that was for me, that was kind of an aha moment, just reading that in the book. We were about 2 years old at the time and didn't have them, and we'd been living these values, but we hadn't articulated them yet. And so it gave us an opportunity to really articulate those values. And once we articulated them and said what we stood for and what we believed in, I think it was a lot easier to live them.
And can you remember if you had any employees at this stage, or was it just the two of you?
We didn't. We had interns at that stage. So the first 2 years we did not pay ourselves. We were bootstrapped for 2 years before we eventually got into a program called Techstars and got some funding after that. But for the first 2 years we were bootstrapped, and we had loads of interns, unpaid interns, who were wonderful. And when we were coming up with our values, truthfully, we looked around the room. I call them intern founders because they were just as much founders as the rest of us. I looked around the room, and we looked and said, what are the values that we have as founders? Obviously, we want to share our own values, but what are the values that our team has? And it wasn't aspirational values; it was the values that they actually had. And we said, if we could get people that have these values, that share these values in the future, we'll have a strong company. So it was just interns at the time.
And did you find that process easy? Because we found some people, I think it can be easier to maybe focus on your personal values, but as a company and the kind of decisions you might make if you're hiring and looking to get investment, did you find that process easy? And was it any battles between you and your co-founders to get to that agreement on that, or even your interns too?
On the values?
Yeah.
No, we decided early on. There was some prioritization. We decided early on we only started with 3. We didn't want a list of values so long that no one remembered it and then they didn't actually mean anything. So we started with just 3 values. One was take fun seriously, and that was, we were kind of goofy, and I think that was a big reason we got people to work for, for free because it was fun to work there. Another one was be the CEO. Well, actually, that wasn't an original one. That was a later one. Authenticity is king. We were weird. And so like, again, is the reasons people were working there was fun. It was weird. And then the number one core value is cultivate through compassion. We were just looking for compassionate people. I think the early ones were pretty easy because they were so, I think, evident already in the things that we were doing that it was like, these stand out. And it was, I wouldn't say obvious, but it was easy to see what was really important to us because we'd been around for 2 years. It wasn't something we just came up out of thin air. It was like, what are the things we're actually doing and living already?
Yeah. There's a line we use a lot with people in the community, which is live them, don't laminate them. Because I think, like you said, a lot of big companies have these big values programs and stick them on the wall or in the drawer somewhere, but don't actually live them. So it sounds like the hardest part is actually to live those out and play those out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the underlying thing. It's window dressing if you just talk about them. But like, we would say that story living is better than storytelling.
Yeah. Awesome. And it sounds like you've got, from some of the stuff I've read, that some quirky practices which reinforce those values. So is it right you have have had burrito eating contests and tube holidays?
Yeah, we'd have, I mean, the burritoing contest, we did a couple of those. I one time hired an intern because she said she could eat a 7-pound burrito. And in fact, when we had a contest, she was our secret weapon. She was like 5'7", like maybe 100 pounds, and ate 3 Chipotle burritos in 15 minutes, which was just insane. And so, we had recharge days where we'd randomly give people days off to do something fun. The only rule was they couldn't do stuff work related. They had to do something fun, take fun seriously. And it's like, we do fun things like that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it seems to me all these things just reinforce the person behind the employees, is that right? I mean, like we have a similar value in terms of just make it fun in terms of people can bring their whole self to work rather than just this sheen of, I've got my work suit on now, my home life's at home.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's right. We spend so much time at work with the people we work with. I am a big believer that you should really enjoy the people you work with. That they shouldn't just be talented and shouldn't just be smart and shouldn't just be like, they should absolutely have the values that you have and share the same company values. They should have obviously a diverse set of views and backgrounds, but they should share the same values. But on top of that, I think you should really enjoy them because I've seen that you work so much better when you enjoy the people you work with. Like you shouldn't, we'd say like, we didn't have a big culture of getting beers after work. That wasn't a big part of the culture, but you should want to, hang out after work with your friends. Like, even if you don't actually do that, we didn't most of the time, you should want to. You should be around people that you enjoy because we've seen that you get so much more done.
Yeah.
You like the people you're with.
I don't know if you get innocent drinks in the US, they're sort of healthy drinks, but they, in their book, they had a thing about the van test. So like, if you thought you couldn't spend a long journey in a van with this person, then you're probably not, they're not the right person for your company.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, awesome. And so is there any, I mean, like for me, when we started out Happy Startup School, there was a lot of negative workplace experiences which shaped what we do. Is there anything that you reflect on that kind of influenced what you said, Tony Hsieh's book, which is something that inspired us too, but have you experienced the other side of work where you aren't enjoying the people you're working with, you're not feeling sort of, passionate about what you're doing?
I didn't have a lot of work experience before I started. I came straight from law school. So my only experiences, truthfully, were a few internships. I don't think they were shaped. I don't think what we were doing was shaped by negativity. I think it was more so shaped by like, all right, we have this clean slate. We could create anything we want. And also I think out of necessity, right? We didn't have money to afford to hire people for the first couple of years. And so we had to create an atmosphere that was worth working in. And we had interns that were supposed to stay on for 3 months that ended up staying 18 months for free. Not because we asked them to, but because they just decided to never leave because they said, we have more fun here at GiveForward than we do out of work. I was just texting, with one of our interns yesterday. It's her birthday tomorrow, and I was texting yesterday with this is an intern from 8 years ago, and still keep in touch with because it was fun. And so I think it was more out of necessity than sometimes anything else. It was like, this is who we are, and being authentic. This is the workforce or workplace that we want to try and create.
So do you think if you got funding or takes funding that they don't have constraints in terms of they end up just going where the opportunity is rather than focusing on their sort of culture?
So I missed the first part of that.
Okay. No, just saying, you said because you were bootstrapping, you had to be a bit more creative about how you sort of position yourself, but also the things you thought were important. Do you think there's a danger that if you got that funding too early, it could have been dangerous for the culture?
Yeah, I think constraints are a great thing. I absolutely think that it forces you to be more creative and prioritize. And we've chose, I think one of the important things about if you're building a culture, I think a culture you can be proud of, I think the very first step is prioritizing it and not just saying it's something, there's only as a founder, there's probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 things you can really focus on. And actually saying we're prioritizing this as something that's important to us, I think it's step 1. I think that's one of the most important things to do.
Yeah. And did you come across any resistance to that? I'm thinking particularly about investors because, you'd say there's a band of investors who don't really care about that stuff. So did you find it hard to find people who really were sort of aligned on the mission and value?
Yeah. I mean, I think, when we first got our first round of seed funding, we had been living these values and working this way. My title on the website when we did our first round of seed funding, for $500,000, still said co-founder and second banana. And so, I'm sure that it weeded out some investors, who probably saw that and said I would never invest in a company where the founder is such a goofball. And I'm sure there were some people who thought it was funny and were more prone to invest. And I think, that authenticity of who we are and not being ashamed of it serves as a beacon to those who are similarly minded and scares away those who, we would clash with. They're like, who would not be fun to work with, who would not pass the band test. And so I think it was a good thing, but I just remember, the very first, second or third, we do monthly investor newsletters, and we had, several billionaires in this first group of investors and several really well-known angels, like high-profile angels, and this was just, after 2 years of acting however we want to act, all of a sudden, do we have to talk about, all these businessy type things, and our first or second newsletter was about the power of hugs, and I remember just sitting there, not sure if I'm going to hit the send button or not, am I going to get laughed out of the room when I'm talking about the power of hugs? And David Cohen, the founder of Techstars, he's one of our investors, and he just responded, this is amazing. I love you guys. This is why I love you guys, and that gave us so much confidence to be ourselves. Yeah. After we could breathe easier, that okay, these guys aren't, they're not going to laugh us out of the room. And so that was, I think, a pivotal moment for us because David was influential, and people followed oftentimes with his views, and so having him believe in us like that, and then everyone kind of had the same response, was just a huge relief that we could continue to be ourselves, and we picked the right investors.
And do you think it was that they believed in the business first and then the culture was a nice sort of add-on, or do you think that they inherently believe in the impact that you were trying to make, as well as the fact that obviously it was going to help make them money too?
I don't think the culture was why they invested. I think they invested, I think they believed in what we were doing, like the mission of the company. They all none of them invested because they thought it was a nonprofit. No, all of them invested because they wanted to make money.
Mm-hmm.
All of them invested because they saw the inherent value and good that we were creating. I don't think any of them invested because of our culture. It's not something we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I think in those initial meetings, it's something that I think they fell in love with.
Mm-hmm.
As they got to know us as a company,
yeah.
And became something that they were all so invested in. But it wasn't something, it was kind of like the free prize inside. It's kind of like something, it was a bonus that they found out later once they'd already invested.
Yeah. And do you see there's a sort of shift a bit? Because I remember there's the guys who invested in Airbnb. I think there's a blog post they wrote which excludes the French, said don't fuck up the culture, you know, in terms of that's what made them great. And likewise with you guys, do you think more people are getting sort of in tune with this as not just nice to have, but actually inherent to building a great company?
Yeah, I do. I mean, when you talked about the first round capital, and they put a survey out and for founders, and I think that, you know, they listed like 20 things that people care about, and I think culture was either number 3 or number 4 on the list, which, you know, higher than like fundraising, higher than customer acquisition, higher than all these other things, was building a good culture. And so I think there has been a very big shift towards it because people are beginning to see the value, you know, in having a good culture. I mean, I think as a startup, we're so, you know, startups in general are so mismatched against incumbents, right? There's all the odds are stacked in the incumbent's favor. And the one thing that startups have, I think, that is the unfair advantage that we have over anyone else is passionate people. Mm-hmm. And in order to create, like, I think, passionate people, you have to believe in stuff, and we have to believe in what we're doing, and we have to have that strong culture, and those values, and your mission, your vision, your values, and everyone has to believe in it. And I think that's inherently what culture is. And I think that's the one advantage we have over, you know, a Google or an Apple or whomever you're up against, is that people believe in what you're doing so deeply. So I think people are starting to see that.
And I suppose there's the more and more examples of organizations like yours that are doing great things and also achieving success, that you can use that as validation that it's not just a nice thing to do, it's also the right way to approach business.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that the biggest reason we achieved what we were able to achieve was precisely because of the culture. We were able to attract such great people to our team, you know, and, you know, I think people are the most important, but that starts with culture. Like, you have to give people a reason to believe. And I certainly don't know how to do a lot of stuff, but we hired great people that do. And those people help, you know, bring the company to where it got to be. So, you know, I think it's all because of culture.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I mean, it's great that you guys are doing great work, because I think a lot of the people we work with are at the early stage, and you know, we talk about building a happy startup, and for us, happy startups about founders being really passionate, like you said, building a strong team, getting people to care about what you're doing, getting customers to care as a result of having great people on board. For us, it seems like common sense, but I think having some, you know, existing companies and not just doing great work, but also generating decent revenues means that it gives confidence to people that this is the right way to go. And that's what, when we read that book, Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh, then there's $1 billion company right there who's got happiness at its heart. Mm-hmm. Cool. And so, yeah, I mean, bit of news for those that don't know, you're moving on to pastures new, understand, and leaving behind this chapter in your life. Mm-hmm. So what's next after GiveForward? Any ideas of what you've got planned?
The immediate next, you know, 6 months, my wife and I are heading down to South America. She is studying social work. She's graduating, and she's going to be working with Spanish-speaking populations in the future. So the next 6 months, our goal is to learn Spanish. And after that, we're heading back to GiveForward's in Chicago in the Midwest in the United States. And we're heading back to the West Coast. We lived in San Francisco for a bit in the past, and we're debating between San Francisco and LA and Portland. So I'm talking, you know, there's a number of things we're thinking of. Talking to some big social media companies, mm-hmm. Geared towards social good, and thinking about maybe investing, jumping onto the other side and investing. I also have a dream of opening just burrito places, and I have a friend, a great friend from high school, who's an amazing chef, and he's he and his wife are opening a Mexican restaurant, and I begged him to allow me to be the first investor. So okay. He allowed me to be the first investor, and if that goes well, I told him I'm going to ride his coattails and join him at some point as we expand across the United States and become taco tycoons. So, so there's all sorts of things. I haven't made a decision. I think for now, I'm thinking, enjoy the next 6 months without stressing about the future and just trusting that trusting the universe.
Yeah. And do you think that, you'd want to go for something as full on as that again in terms of one venture, or it sounds like you're looking at maybe, sort of experimenting with a few different ideas and a few different collaborations?
Yeah, and people ask, would I want to start something again? And I think the answer to that is kind of, yes, if I was passionate about something. I don't want to start something for the sake of starting something. I know it's way too hard to start something unless you feel really passionate about it, unless there's something that strikes me, or someone comes to me with something that says like, and I grow passionate about what they're talking about. But I don't think, at least right now, I don't have something in mind where I'm like, yeah, I want to have this next idea. And so, I don't believe in the idea of starting stuff to start stuff.
Yeah. So never say never, but let's maybe catch up in 6 months and see if you missed the buzz.
Yeah, sure. It's funny. I'm enjoying time off. I'm taking some time off right now, and taking Spanish classes. I'm taking a product management class. I'm planning for this trip and planning this move, and I'm catching up on all the TV I didn't watch in the last 7 years, and it's nice to I'm enjoying this time off. But then at the same time, I'll go in and help out some startups every now and then, or and it's you do kind of get that that bug again all of a sudden to be like, oh, this is fun. I forgot how fun this is, and how busy and how how fast things are moving, and just brainstorming on ideas. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where things go.
And I'm conscious of time. We've got a couple of minutes, but yeah, one thing just to leave with, really. I mean, the classic question of any tips for someone starting out, particularly someone who's trying to balance something they really care about as well as something that will hopefully make them a living too. But touching on that quickly is the post you wrote when you announced that you were leaving GiveForward. You touched a lot on sort of love and kindness, which was really sort of powerful for me in terms of what we're trying to build with Happy Startup School is, just putting your heart into something and as much as possible giving it away too. So I don't know, do you want to elaborate a little bit about that, and then maybe a final parting point on it?
Sure. So, man, the biggest thing that we, saw, I mean, just one of the biggest things that I saw at GiveForward was, it was not so much a lesson about starting a business as it was a lesson about humanity. It was a lesson I learned from all of the users, and seeing that like we all want the same things. We all want to be loved, and that so oftentimes, so the way GiveForward works is someone would typically start a fundraiser for a loved one who was going through a medical procedure. Someone has my friend has cancer, and I want to show him that he's not alone, and I want to show them that, hey, we all care about him and we're going to support him through this. And so there's really two sides to the equation. Is on the one side, the people who are sick, who are always feeling like, man, I feel so alone in this, and there's no one else in the world going through something like this, and I feel scared. And on the other side of the equation were all these people who were saying, I wish there was something I could do, and I'm not sure what my place is, and it's scary, and I don't know if I should do something or not. And then GiveForward was kind of that bridge that allowed the people who needed help to connect with the people who wanted help but didn't know what to do. And so it was, we called this thing as creating unexpected joy, where something bad happens, where someone gets cancer, but because of it, they found out how many people actually love them. And there was this silver lining of constantly being surprised by this overwhelming amount, and this tidal wave of love that comes in, and so that was, I think, the biggest thing you learn is don't don't be scared to take that leap, and not to be a bystander and just sit there while there's someone else is suffering, because the chances are you take that leap and it could backfire, but like more often than not you go out there and you're providing exactly what what someone needs, and it's just like letting that person know, hey, I love you. Like, we don't say that enough. We often wait too long. So.
Well, it sounds like that's the common thread for me is life's short, and don't wait for some of those things to happen to make it clear to them, but also for us, if you're starting out with something and you've got an urge to do it, just why not start today? Because you never know what's around the corner. Yeah,
and I'd say, I don't know if we've got a minute left or 10 seconds left, but like the hardest thing is starting it, right? And once you get started, there's inertia and things get easier and easier. They never get easy, but they get easier and things keep moving. But the second thing is, right, like after you started, that's the hardest thing. But the next thing, our first year, we did $3,000 in revenue. 7 months in, on New Year's Day, 2009, we had 1 visitor on the site. And, later we'd have millions and millions and millions of visitors a month. But it's slow, I think. And everyone says like, it's the overnight success, but it's more often the overnight success that took 3 or 4 years, right? And no one sees that it can be very slow in the beginning. And I'd say, if you're passionate about something, as long as you really are passionate about something, to keep plugging away until you've kind of exhausted all avenues. Because the best thing that we did, honestly, was be in the right place at the right time. We stayed alive for 2 years. We launched a year before Kickstarter launched and before crowdfunding was a real word. And so we stayed around long enough for crowdfunding to catch on, for Kickstarter to blow up, and we happened to be at the right place at the right time when the wave came. So sticking around through those hard times, everyone's going to face them. I think that's one of the important things.
Awesome. Well, there's a great line from, I think it's a designer called Frank Chimero, did a talk where he said, do things the long, hard, stupid way. So I think we're doing that as well. Yeah. We're good evidence of that, but there's some sort of logic to it too, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Paul Graham has said about Airbnb, do the things that don't scale. I mean, I think that's somewhat similar. It's like all those things that don't scale, like culture, oftentimes, and like doing those right things, doing it, putting all of those efforts in and your passion into things and creating magical experiences for people. Those things don't always scale, but they're incredibly valuable in building great organizations.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks a million, Ethan. Really appreciate you taking the time out and for the words of wisdom for everyone. Best of luck with the trip around South America, and yeah, look forward to seeing what you cook up next. Literally, if the burrito. Yeah. It sounds like you got a few interns who might be the first customers.
Yeah, totally. Right. Oh, I'll have to do some alpha tests with them.
Yeah, exactly. Cool, man. All right. Well, best of luck, and yeah, take care.
Cheers.
See you soon. Take care.